These are the words of Henry David Thoreau, Journal 3, January 1853. I love nature partly because she is not man, but a retreat from him. None of his institutions control or pervade her. There a different kind of right prevails. In her midst I can be glad with an entire gladness. If this world were all man, I could not stretch myself. I should lose all hope. He is constant. She is freedom to me. He makes me wish for another world. She makes me content with this. All right. Well, good morning again. These are, I print off copies of these, and they're in the back if you want. I kind of follow what I write, we'll see, but sometimes more so than others. I write them mostly for people who might be hearing impaired, so if you're struggling with your hearing as I am sometimes, it's good to have something written out. Also, I just want to let you know that we do have a committee on ministry, which if you have any concerns or anything about how worship is going or anything at all about our church, you can let them know. We also have a suggestion box in the back of the church. And Donna Cook is here. Donna, can you raise your hand? She's sort of the chair of our committee on ministry, so thank you. The month of March has been all about attention. And we started with the concept of pure attention. And then we moved to listening attention, listening to each other. Also was our stewardship campaign, so listening to our stewardship needs is a part of that, right? Today is all about paying attention to nature, or even the nature of attention itself. And now in our tradition of Unitarian Universalism, the body of knowledge we most draw from when we talk about attention to nature is the work of the transcendentalists, right? Transcendentalists include people like Margaret Fuller, early women's rights champion and one of the only female editors of a major magazine of that time. Elizabeth Peabody, who was the early pioneer in the movement of kindergarten and talking about the original blessing of children and how to awaken that innate curiosity to build a better world. There was the Unitarian Universalist or Unitarian minister and abolitionist Theodore Parker. Of course, there was Ralph Waldo Emerson and Henry David Thoreau. There were many other people who were part of the transcendental movement. Now, I know it's popular in some circles to sort of denigrate the transcendentalists as a weak form of cheating survivalists. Highbrow Harvard intellectuals pretending to be commoners, or progressives that weren't all that progressive as philosophers who just borrowed a bunch of stuff from the Bhagavad Gita. There's truth in all of that criticism. But on the whole, I disagree. I can tell you for a fact that they were onto something rather profound, and that living in this manner and under the umbrella of this philosophy is something that makes the world a better place. They created the first American homegrown intellectual movement. Think about that. The first. They were willing to live out their values, to create communes that, yes, they failed, but they created them, and they tried to live there for a while and write together. And they were willing to be arrested for their concepts. And I'm thinking of Henry David Thoreau's work on civil disobedience. Their ideas were a great antidote to this triumphalist Christian story of continued domination and control of nature and weaker sexes and races. And I'm afraid that this story is reaching a crescendo at this moment with greater lunacy than ever before. The main idea was this: the truth of the cosmos belongs not to the little worlds of expertise created from the symbolic universes of human beings, but from the areas of the world least touched by human vanity and dominion, the area they referred to as nature. In nature, the divine is there in the everyday, and it is to be celebrated and enjoyed directly by every human being. It's not to be mediated by some institution like a church or a cultural narrative. It's for you to experience today. Now, transcendentalism didn't come out of nowhere. It runs parallel to movements like Romanticism, Unitarianism, Swedenborgianism, and he even borrowed some ideas from people like Jonathan Edwards, who wrote a century earlier. But its emphasis on nature and that direct experience of nature is unique and relevant as much as it was back then. And I would argue even more so. I experienced transcendentalism directly. Most of you know that I was raised in a house we built with hand tools in the foot of Mount Monadnock. We salvaged all the materials from barns we tore down in the area by hand. We lived without electricity. And guess who my parents read a lot of? Henry David Thoreau, Ralph Waldo Emerson, and we would make pilgrimages to Concord. We're also influenced, by the way, this other guy, is much less known, a guy named Scott Naring, who was like a blend of transcendentalism with Marxism. And it was this idea that doing everything by yourself by hand would restore the labor capitalism had alienated from you. We actually hand dug our own pond with picks and shovels and wheelbarrows. All this was about bringing ourselves closer to nature. When I was 10 or 11, or 12 maybe, my mother and I were sitting up on our high deck one long summer afternoon. We had worked hard outside all day. I can't remember if it was the endless raised bed garden projects or those endless stone wall and path projects or the endless cutting and splitting and burning 6 cords a year required. But there we were on the high deck, resting for a moment. It's one of those afternoons that had some wind, so the mosquitoes were not as bad as they usually were. And she turned to me and she said, "You hear the birds?" I said, yes, I hear the birds. Listen to them, she said. So we sat there for a while, just listening to the birds. I could hear a phoebe, a meadowlark, a chickadee, some crows cawing by the compost heap. I described them. Do you hear the birds beyond the birds? She said. I listened harder. Many of the birds in the immediate vicinity were communicating to other birds that were further away, and I could hear them responding. And beyond them, she asked? I had to slow my attention way down. I listened more deeply than I ever had before. And I could hear the birds beyond the birds beyond the birds. Suddenly, I had the strangest sensation. My attention was now wider and clearer than I had ever experienced. It was as if the world itself was breathing, and I and my mother were included in this one awareness, this one attention. It was the first glimpse of this attention that was bigger than my own. The true nature of nature was attention itself. I experienced a glimpse in this same wideness of attention each time I meditate. Here's a simple thing that you can do. Just go for a little walk. You can be anywhere. We have a little tiny nature trail in the back of the church. If you haven't tried it out, you should try it out sometime. We've got some old placards that need to be replaced about the transcendentalists, a lot of them are. But take time, just walk very deliberately, slowly. Take the time to feel the bark of the trees. Take the time to notice any little flowers or variation of the leaves around you that when they start to grow in the spring. Feel the earth, the quality of it. Inspect it. Breathe deeply the rich smell of the soil. Awaken your senses to it. And just see what happens. This is a practice called forest bathing. Very easy to do. But there's been some scientific studies done, and it creates greater empathy. It reduces cortisol levels. It is good for you. It's an experience also of transcendentalism. Think about it. How does a species thrive? By learning how to pay attention. What therefore is an ecosystem? An ecosystem is interdependent attention. You know, a lot of modern scholars believe that Charles Darwin was a little bit misinterpreted by his close association to the social Darwinist Spencer. When he was talking about survival of the fittest, he wasn't talking about the survival of the most violent, of the strongest, but about that which fit best in the puzzle, that which adapted better to the environment. And under this, each molecule, each compound of every living thing and every so-called non-living thing is so complex, so perfect and precise. What is that if it is not attention? On the one hand, one could say that all reality springs from a field of attention, but on the other, that things only can exist if they pay attention. Now, I'm not saying that this is intelligence. For intelligence denotes something singular, something with an ego that requires some kind of belief. No, I'm saying that attention is what is. And is it not a cause of wonder and joy? I wonder what Thoreau would have made of the understanding that even in his own day, the factories belching forth the copious carbon from their stacks were already changing the environment of the most virgin forests he loved to walk in New Hampshire. What would he have made of the knowledge that humanity's bad ideas caused the direct extinction of countless species? Oh, I love it when my printer fails to print the last 2 pages of my sermon. I wonder what he would have made of this knowledge that there is no rarefied separation, this place of nature that is separate from humanity, right? But he knew a little bit of it. He knew of it. And Patrick's coming up with the quote that I needed. Thank you, Patrick. He wrote this, he said, most men, it seems to me, do not care for nature and would sell their share in all her beauty as long as they may live for a stated sum, many for a glass of rum. Thank God men cannot as yet fly and lay waste to the sky as well as the earth. And yet he continued on with his work. He continued on with his walking. He continued on with his writing. He continued on reaching out with his community of like-minded men and women. That's what he did. That's what we can do. So let us pay attention. Just like those early transcendentalists. This attention we pay is not ours, but the attention of nature itself, from which our own attention continually springs. It shall be for us always not only a reservoir for resilience, but as our very meaning and purpose. Nature is our medicine. Nature is our mission. On this most first rainy day of spring, let us embrace our purpose. Let us rejoice in it. Let us become stronger together in it. Might we, attentive to nature, even become a force of her, a force of nature. Yes, that's what we are. So, get out there this week. Do a little letter writing on behalf of nature. Do a little bit of walking in nature. You can try out the forest bathing exercise. Peace to you in your week, in our common love of nature and our attention to nature. Peace to you.